Alright, so in the last video, I talked a little bit about the conditions for consumer equilibrium, and I also said that the slope of the budget line needs to equal the slope of the indifference curve at consumer equilibrium. So we're going to dive a little bit into the mathematical expression of how this consumer equilibrium occurs, where the absolute value of the budget line slope equals the absolute value of the indifference curve slope. So we're going to keep on using our burgers and tacos example. And if you remember back from chapter 3, whenever you're calculating the slope of the budget constraint, it was the price of burgers divided by the price of tacos, or the price of good B divided by the price of good A. And we can use any other two goods besides burgers and tacos. But that's what the book uses, so that's what we're going to keep going with. So it has to equal the slope of the indifference curve. Or that, if you remember from chapter 3, it's that marginal utility of burgers divided by the marginal utility of tacos. So the price of burgers divided by the price of tacos is that slope of that budget constraint. And it's the rate at which the market is willing to exchange tacos for burgers. So the key aspect about that is the rate at which the market as a whole, how much are people as a whole, anybody who's buying burgers and tacos, willing to exchange tacos for burgers? And we know that because of the prices of them. If a price of a burger costs $2 and a taco costs 50 cents, the market is willing to give up 4 tacos for 1 burger. And vice versa. You're willing to give up 1 burger in order to gain 4 tacos. And we know that because the market dictates that through the prices that we already talked about up here. We have the marginal utility of burgers divided by the marginal utility of tacos. That's that slope of that indifference curve. And it's the rate at which the consumer is willing to exchange tacos for burgers. So the slope of the indifference curve is the rate at which a consumer is willing to give up tacos for burgers. So here, the slope of the indifference curve deals with the whole market. How much is the market willing? What is the value the market places on them? Versus these marginal utility, the slope of the indifference curve looks at how much the consumer, what the individual consumer is willing to exchange. So we know that at consumer equilibrium, the slope of the indifference, or of the budget constraint, is equal to the slope of the indifference curve. So we are going to actually rearrange this equation. And that's what all this math does down here. We have the price of burgers divided by the price of tacos is equal to the marginal utility of burgers divided by the marginal utility of tacos. We know that these two must be equal to each other. The absolute values of them must be equal to each other at market equilibrium. So I want to rearrange this formula and get it to look something like this equation down here. So first off, I'm going to multiply both sides by the marginal utility of tacos over 1. So I go ahead and do that to both sides. And as you can see, I can actually cross out the marginal utility of tacos from basically the second side of the equation, the right side of this equation. Because we have marginal utility of burgers divided by marginal utility of tacos times the marginal utility of tacos over 1. We can actually cancel out those two equations. So now as we move on to the next aspect, we have the marginal utility of tacos times the price of burgers divided by the price of tacos. And over here we have just the marginal utility of burgers over 1. I want to get burgers moved to the other side. So what am I going to do? I'm going to divide both sides by the price of burgers. And you can see what I've done here, that I've taken both sides times 1 over the price of burgers. Well, that cancels out the price of burgers from the left side and adds it to the right side. So long story short, we're left with an equation that says marginal utility of tacos divided by price of tacos is equal to the marginal utility of burgers divided by the price of burgers. And that comes out to be this equation right here. The marginal utility of tacos divided by the price of tacos is equal to the marginal utility of burgers divided by the price of burgers. We basically took this equation right here and rearranged it to equal this with all of this math currently right here. Why did we do that? What's the purpose of doing that? What does this all mean? Well, the meaning is that the marginal utility derived from the last dollar spent on each good is equal. So basically what this does is that the marginal utility tacos is the additional utility received from the very last taco. So as consumption rises up for a single good, remember that marginal utility falls. As we consume more tacos, the additional satisfaction from each taco is going to fall. So the marginal utility of tacos divided by the price of tacos would be that additional satisfaction received per dollar spent. So basically, we can now look and say that the additional satisfaction per dollar from that last taco must equal that additional satisfaction per dollar from that last burger. So it's that marginal utility, or that additional utility from the last dollar spent on each good is equal. The amount of value placed on your last taco is equal to the amount of value placed on your last burger. Otherwise, what would happen? We would just consume, I put in the word confirm, but it's supposed to be consume one good over the other. If, for example, we had the marginal utility of tacos per price of taco, or per value of taco, was, say, 3 units of satisfaction, or 3 additional units of satisfaction per dollar for tacos. Whereas burgers was, say, 1 additional unit of satisfaction per dollar. Well, which one are you going to go with? The one that yields you the highest amount of satisfaction per dollar, right? So you're going to go with tacos over burgers. But as you consume more tacos, what happens to that marginal utility? It begins to fall. So that marginal utility per dollar actually begins to fall as well. So as that progresses, these burgers look a lot more appetizing as well. So basically, what this marginal utility of a good divided by the price of the good is going to show you the amount of utility that you receive, or the additional utility you receive per dollar spent. And if the additional utility from one good is higher than the other good, or if the additional utility per dollar is higher for good A than good B, is higher for burgers and tacos, you're going to go with burgers over tacos. And that's not where consumer equilibrium is going to be. It's going to be where those two, where the marginal utility derived from the last dollar of each good is equal. That's where that mathematical condition for consumer equilibrium is going to take place.